Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today, we're going to talk to one of the fastest upcoming comedians today. And let me tell you about this guy a little bit. He has a new way of delivering comedy, and it's really based from everything that he's gone through. And we hear that a lot when it comes to the entertainment industry, especially in the area of comedy. We hear a lot of this. I'm telling it from my story, but or my point of view, as the comedians would say. But today we have a young man who's going to tell us about a new style of comedy that's truly based on his life experience, and it's called sober comedy. Never heard of it, but it's impactful, and you guys are going to understand how it all came to be. I'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Comedian himself, Randy Cusick, to the show. What's up, big guy?
What's going on? Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Such a journey over 18 years sobriety. Wow.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
California native, beautiful place. Before
Yes.
we get started, Randy, tell the viewers a little bit about you before we get into this journey of sobriety and the new
Okay.
invention of the word sober comedy.
Well, I don't do just sober comedy. I do comedy and it's based off of my experience. And my experience is like I went from homelessness to drug addiction to living behind a dumpster, and now I get to share it on stage. I just take my experiences and not be ashamed of them and bring them to the stage and make people laugh. And it's beautiful. I love it.
Before
And
before you got
yeah, go
into
ahead.
before you got into to comedy and drugs and drinking, what was your home life like? I mean, California, man, you had to be out on the beach surfing and doing all that stuff we only see on TV in the Midwest.
Man, I got caught up quick. I got caught up quick, man. I heard some song about the freedom heroin gives you, and I had to have that. And, I lived a mile from the beach and I rarely went there, man. I was just strung out on drugs for a longest time. And it brought me to living behind a dumpster. And yeah, so.
How did that even take place that you who introduced you to the drug life? That would be where I started. Who introduced you to it? We hear about California. I've seen such movies as Blow, where
Yeah.
Johnny Depp went out there and he said, "Oh my God, this is a whole new world." How did that world open up for you?
Well, let's see, growing up, I was like raised by my dad and my mom left, so I didn't really know how to talk to people, didn't trust women. And when I went to school, man, I saw these kids smoking weed and doing stuff like that. And like I didn't know how to talk to people, so I started doing that stuff with them, and it opened me up a little bit and kind of got me out of myself a little bit. And that weed turned to liquor, and that turned to this and this and this. And eventually I got to heroin. And boy, it caught me up.
So
Caught me up quick.
you started out with what they may call harmless recreational drugs like weed. You was in high
Yeah.
school. So what age was you when you was introduced to the heroin scene?
Oh man, it was way before high school. It's
Really?
middle school. Yeah.
So
The heroin, like I didn't really I was pretty bad, man. I didn't even go to high school really. I went to high school a little bit, but not much. And all in all in high school, I probably did 2 months there. I don't know. But yeah, I was pretty bad at the time. I'd say about 15 is when I got caught up with the heroin. About 13 is when I started doing, weed and all that.
this sounds crazy, and I mean, you know your story better than anybody. First of
Yeah.
all, how in the hell do you get accessibility to heroin at the age of 15 years old, let alone weed at 13 years old? Then the second part of that question is your mom wasn't there, but you lived with your dad. Who was keeping tracks of you being in school, and did he even care that you was doing this? Or did he have any record, any knowledge that you was doing
Hell no. I don't think my dad even knew where the school was.
it?
My dad, there was a lot of bikers when I grew up, and they had a lot of stuff, and they taught me where to get it. I had quite a few different connections until I started robbing them, and then
Really?
they didn't want to deliver to me anymore.
Well,
But
you
I always figured out a way to get it.
what did your dad say? So your dad was aware that you was doing heroin and all these things that could later lead to a serious addiction problem or even death?
He never confronted me about one single thing in my life. Like I think he was afraid of confrontation. I'm not sure, man, but like he caught me smoking weed right when I started. I had all my friends. We ditched school and had a bunch of friends in the house.
Mm.
Never said a word about it. Man, I was on edge for a week. Never said a word about it. So he never confronted me about anything.
I bet your friends at the time was like, your dad is fucking cool.
Yeah, they're the only ones that thought that. I
What
was on edge.
now that you're older, now that you're older, do you have any regrets by your father not being confrontational, not addressing you about the pitfalls that this can lead to? Because you did go down the journey that usually happens with that. But now that you're looking back, you've been sober for 18 years. Do you have any regrets that you wish your father had done differently with you?
To be honest, no. I'm grateful for him for all he didn't do because I try to be the father that he wasn't to me, and I'm there every step of the way for my son. And there's nothing like being a sober dad and being able to do stuff and actually remember it. And I put that in my comedy too. I put everything in there.
When did But let's go back to the other part of my question. How in
Okay.
the hell did you get accessibility to one of the most potent drugs outside of cocaine at the age of 15? I don't get that. Like, were you really that well connected? And were the people that was giving it to you, wasn't they worried about the fact that you was underage? And if you had died, the tracks was going to probably lead back to them?
Hell no, if they're selling heroin, they don't care what age you are. I think the first time was with my Uncle Bud, and he took me, and the guy would meet me on a corner, and he introduced me to him, and then I got his number and I could start calling him. And then, I got introduced to different connections, and it just kept going on and on and on like that.
Did was there wide drug use in your family structure that made it an easy
Oh, yeah.
accessibility for you? Like how many
Yeah.
people that you know was involved with drug use in your household or in your family structure?
To be honest, it was just me, my dad, and my brother growing up in a garage. And my dad drank so much, he wasn't into drugs. My brother was into everything. And I don't know that he was into heroin. I was into a lot of other stuff. And when I started heroin, I didn't know anybody who did it. I sought it out. And it's weird, man, because like I was doing like cocaine and meth and drinking and all that stuff. And then I heard a song, and this song's telling me about, I don't even remember what song it is. It's telling me about freedom heroin gives you. And I'm like, bam, I need that. So it took me about 2, 3 weeks, but I finally found somebody who could get me some. And I swore I would never use a needle, and I didn't for 5 years. And I finally crossed that line after a while.
So you even did cocaine?
Yeah.
Was there ever
Yes.
let me go back a minute. You're
You,
young as you're doing these things. What
I'm sorry, say
what
again?
you were young when you was doing these drugs. What were you trying to escape from?
Life, man. I didn't know how to handle life. I was terrible at school. I didn't really have too many friends, growing up. Uh, I tried to impress my dad one year. I always sucked at school. One year I got five A's and a C. And I showed him my report card and he's like, why the fuck did you get a C? You know?
Really?
He, yeah, so he never told me he was proud of me or anything. So I guess I was always trying to seek that, looking for something, And I expected drugs to get me out of myself. And
Which one did you try first? We know you tried the weed first, but now you're talking, I didn't even know about the cocaine. Which came first, the
yeah,
cocaine or the heroin?
cocaine. Yeah.
What was you not getting from cocaine? I don't know the drug stuff, but you've had experience with it. But what was the reason that you switched from the cocaine to the heroin?
It's weird. All drugs have a different effect on you, man. Cocaine is like it's different, man. When you snort it, when you smoke it, when you shoot it, it's all different. And when you smoke and shoot it, it just gets you paranoid. And like it's so weird. I would spend money over and over to get freaking paranoid.
That
It's
that sounds
it's so
crazy. You know
fucking
that.
stupid. It really is, man. And now I get to help people who have the same problems, and I love that, you
So
know.
then you switched to the heroin. What was the euphoria that what were you trying to get from the heroin that you went from you didn't want to be paranoid, but now when the heroin was introduced to you, what did the supplier tell you you was going to get from using this? Like they got
Oh,
to
they
tell
ain't
you the
trying to
pitch.
sell nothing. The supplier ain't trying to sell nothing, man. You go to them, they don't promote their stuff. Uh, I just heard the benefits of it, and I think actually, if I remember correctly, before I started doing heroin, I started doing some pills and they were called loads. And it's like Dorton and Cody mixed together. And I heard that was a synthetic heroin. And when I did that, I was just like, just relax, no care in the world. You know, I could talk to people better. I felt in my mind that this is it. I've made it.
Really?
So
Were there
yeah, it's weird.
were there ever moments that you had to know the risk that you can die with one stick of a needle, one snort of a line? You know, that never phased you, or you was just too far in where you was at in your mind that it probably didn't phase you, I guess.
I just crossed that line, bro. I just crossed that line. In the beginning, it was like I was getting high. At the end, I was just getting well. And I was so like I needed it so bad. It just takes over your mind. And if you would have told me you could shoot this heroin, but I'm going to shoot you in the head right after, I would have said, could it be 5 minutes after? I would have took that shot. It didn't matter to me. It didn't matter what was in that needle. I actually shot after somebody who had AIDS and I didn't rinse the needle out or anything. I was just like, I needed it so bad. And then about a year later, when I went into rehab, they gave me an AIDS test. And at that point, I was actually disappointed that I didn't have it because that would have gave me an excuse to get high again. My mind was just so far gone at that time. It was terrible.
How'd you know the person had AIDS that you went behind them with the needle?
It was a known fact, and we were all shooting drugs together, and
And that didn't stop you knowing that
not
you
even close.
really.
Nothing would have stopped me at that point.
When did it really start to spiral out of control for you?
It was one point where I was homeless. I was living behind a dumpster, and that didn't bother me. I accepted that as my lifestyle. I went to prison a couple times. I accepted that as my lifestyle, but nothing was working. I couldn't get drunk. I couldn't get high, no matter how much I did. And I remember like I was walking the streets, just this feeling of loneliness came over me, and I've never felt anything like it. And I thought to myself, you could be homeless the rest of your life, or you could be in jail. And I accepted that fact. And I was just walking a miserable life. And about 2 days later, after that thought, I had a 3-year-old daughter, and she was with me at that point. She usually stayed with my wife, but my wife needed her with me at that point
Mhm.
so she could do something. And I was getting arrested one more time. And this little 3-year-old started crying, and she says, Daddy, please don't go back to jail. And that woke me up, man. That woke me up. I knew I had to change my life and be a better man.
When you went
So
to
I was
jail,
on my way to prison, and I did that last prison term. When I got out, I started calling rehabs, and I started doing this thing.
Rick, what did you wind up getting arrested for? Possession of drugs, drug use? I mean,
Yeah, that's it, possession.
so they came to your house and somebody told on you and they came to your house to get you?
But no, I got arrested on the streets, I believe. Uh, I know one time, like my first prison term, I was just shooting dope on a Sizzler in a Sizzler parking lot.
Oh my God.
Wow. I could have went in the bathroom in Sizzler, but I was just doing it out in public. And you're not going to believe this. I get arrested by a bicycle cop.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious. That was my first prison term.
Like when you say your
And
prison term, what did they give you?
16 months.
So a year and a half.
Yeah, but I wound up doing 10 months on the first one and eight months and 2 weeks on the second one.
When you went in the first time, how do you adapt to now confinement, being away from your family? You know you have, well, I don't know if you know you have a problem or not, but if you're using that kind of drugs and that thing, do you go through withdrawals? Did you go through withdrawals while you was in there?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I alienated my family so much that I had no friends. I had no family. And I'm so sorry. What was the first part of your question?
Like when you went in there, like it seemed like that knowing that you had a drug addiction problem, that they would have, did they provide you resources? I guess is what I'm trying to say when you went in.
Oh, hell no. Hell no, no. I was kicking under the bench in county jail, and just when you get off heroin, you're sick for a while, like 4 or 5 days, and your legs hurt. You feel like you have a bad flu, and it's just bad. But to adapt in there, it was so easy. Like I was homeless. I didn't care about food. If I got $20, I would buy a pack of cigarettes, and the rest would go on heroin.
Hmm.
And I didn't care if I was eating, or that eating was, if it was there, it was there. So when I got in there, man, everybody says the food in there sucks, but I wasn't eating. So to me, the food was great. And I have friends around me all the time. Like I accepted that lifestyle. I was in prison playing handball and pinochle, and I accepted that as my lifestyle.
How were you able to overcome your addiction? Why
Like
you?
I said, well, I'm sorry, say again.
How did you? And how did you treat the addiction while you was in the first time? And were you able to, or you just, or was the availability of drugs just the same as in on the streets?
No, no, it's not like that. They say it is. My second term, I actually brought some in with me.
Say what?
I swallowed, huh?
Say what? You bought it in with you?
I brought some in with me, yeah, because I knew I was gonna have to kick heroin, so I wanted to ease it a little bit. I swallowed it, and then a couple days later, came out.
Jeez.
I know it's terrible. Things people do.
So there was no treatment plan either time that you was in there. You had to figure it out yourself.
The first time I knew I was getting high again, I knew I was coming back to prison. Like I just, I was pissed off at that bicycle cop for taking my dope. A second time, after my daughter said that to me, I had that awakening. And before I got out, I got a hold of a rehab in Santa Monica and went in there and started this AA program that I'm in.
What was that like
So
for you? And how difficult was that for you to do that?
not difficult at all, man. It was not difficult at all. I always use drugs as a higher power. I just had to find a different higher power. And that's what I did, man. And it's not a church. It's to me, it's just a spiritual thing, man. So I wrote down like what I want in a higher power,
Hmm.
forgiving, trusting, loving, understanding, all that stuff. And that's what I did. And I turned my life over to that. And I started working these steps. I started yeah, I just and then, eventually you get to start helping people and people see what you've been through and you talk about stuff that you would never talk about. There's a couple things I did that I was so ashamed of that I'm not embarrassed to share publicly. And people hear me say that and they say, "Oh, me too. I was scared to say that." And it relieves them. You know what I mean?
Well, all right, tell me what it is, because I don't know. What was it?
I'm not telling you. No, I'm kidding. Man, when I was out there, doing my thing, my ex-wife asked me to wrap a Christmas present for my 2-year-old daughter, and I saw that receipt and I stole from my daughter. I took that Christmas present and I was 117 pounds at the time, and I was fighting with myself in the mirror. I'm like, Randy, you cannot steal from your daughter. But I needed to, man. So I took that present. And another thing I did to her, I put her in a car seat at 2 in the morning. I drove to the hood to my connection's house and left her in that car seat while I went upstairs. And that's something that's terrible, man. I hate that I did that. Took a lot to forgive myself for that. But when I share that public, I find there's a lot more people that did a lot of stuff, and they're really good parents now, and I've been able to volunteer in that girl's school for years and just make amends to her and be a good father to her.
What's the
And
relationship
that's
like now with her? What's the relationship like now?
it's really good, man. We're on a little vacation right now in Lake Arrowhead. I'm gonna stop by her house on the way home and like we talk all the time. She's a great kid. Oh my God, she's 29 now. I'm old. She's 29 now but seriously, I was able to like be there for her. I walked her down the aisle for her first wedding and I'm there for her all the time.
My thing is, what kind of job were you doing? Drugs cost money.
Yeah. People have money and I steal it from them.
Wow.
I I used to panhandle, I used to steal. I was not a good man, you know. It's not a good man.
How were
Thank
you?
God I have it.
Yeah.
Say
How,
again.
how were you able to? How were you able to convince your child's mother to let you back in your children's life, knowing the recidivism that you was going through with the addiction, with going back and forth into the legal system? How did you manage to convince her to allow you the opportunity to start a relationship with your daughter?
After a while, she wasn't in the picture at all. The My daughter stayed with her grandma while I was in prison. And when I got out, allowed me to have a relationship with her because she saw me staying clean and sober. And the I just kept like when I got out, I got a job and pretty soon I was supervisor of that job and I just kept doing good things, and she saw that and she saw what a good father I was trying to be.
Now, this is the $1 million question.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
Here we go. How in
Here
the
we go.
heck did you turn all of this tragedy and pain into a sold out audience?
That's a good question. When I share at AA meetings, like I share about my story and I can laugh about it. And
Mhm.
I hear people laughing, and I always love making people laugh. So one day I'm sitting at home on freaking Facebook, and this girl, a friend of mine, says, I'm thinking of teaching some comedy classes. I'm like, what the hell? Let me learn about it, you know?
Yeah,
So she said she was teaching 4 comedy classes and it was all online. So I'm like, cool. I wasn't thinking I have to go up in front of an audience or anything. I just want to learn about it.
right.
So my second class, she says, okay, after these 4 classes, we're going on stage. I'm like, oh, we're going on stage. And I was freaking out, man. But I felt my stuff was funny, you know? Like I used to be homeless, live actually at one point I was living in a tent beyond my dad's, and like I got a good bit about that, and like I got a good bit about everything, man. And I could find the funny in it and bring it on stage. And when I go on stage, I'm not thinking, oh my God, I gotta look good, I gotta say the right thing. I'm thinking I gotta be a service to this audience. You know, I gotta make them smile, make them think, make them laugh, you know.
Mhm.
And when I went on stage the first time, I was so frightened. Like I was like shaking a little bit and I had cotton mouth and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And right when I hit the stage and everybody started cheering, I'm like, I found my calling. This is it. This is it. And I just started pursuing it.
Like, how did you open up with your first bit, and how did you know what was going to resonate with the crowd?
Oh, I don't even remember what my first bit was. Now I do, like I got 2 different openers now. I got about 5 different openers right now. You know, one of them is, hey, I just celebrated my 15-year wedding anniversary. We went to Alaska for our honeymoon. So on our anniversary, I went back to Alaska to pick her up. And
Interesting.
another one is like if I got 5 minutes to finish or whatever, I say, yeah, so and so is only giving me 5 minutes to finish up here. That's 4 minutes longer than it usually takes me. You know, I just got some silly little opener and then I get into stuff, you know.
What
I'm so sorry.
did you ever even think about being a comedian?
Uh, no, not until that. Not until that.
Really, that's kind of strange. Most people,
Actually, you know what? I went to a lot of comedy shows. Like that was actually date night for me and my wife.
yeah.
And we would always go to comedy shows. And I think it crossed my mind a couple times. It'd be nice to be on this stage. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could do it, but I would love to be on that stage one day. You know, that was my thought.
What's the most? You said you were scared when you first went out on the stage, but when did you realize that you liked it? You said you realized when you liked it, but when did you have to start putting the plan in action to actually become a famous comedian, not just somebody that just comes and tells jokes? You now have to turn this into what you want to be, your occupation, your craft. When did that change, and what preparations did you do to make that happen?
You can't just tell the same jokes over and over and over. I mean, it works for a lot of people if they don't want to expand or whatever. But after that first comedy, like I realized I need to write more. I need to expand and get out and do things. And it's work, man. It's a lot of work. So you got to put it on paper and just like one joke is about 5 freaking pages of just crumbled up. No, that ain't gonna work. Throw it away. Crumbled up. No, that ain't gonna work. Throw it away. And you just gotta find it. You gotta find the funny in everything,
Mhm.
and that's my goal.
When you're trying to find the funny in everything based on your life, how emotional do you get in it? Because I know it's designed to make the people laugh, but this is still your
Yeah.
life. So how do you keep the pain from exuberating?
Hmm. That's funny. I really don't feel any in the moment because, like, all the stuff I've been through, I've wrote it down. And when you're in Alcoholics Anonymous, you do something called a 4 step, and you write everything you've done down, all the bad stuff, all the people you've hurt and stuff like that. And then you make amends to those people. So I'm not really thinking about it anymore. When I tell you about, like, I stole from my daughter, it doesn't affect me in the least because I already went through that pain. I
Mhm.
already went through the mourning of that.
When you're talking about making amends to people, how did you start making amends with your own self?
Forgiving, it was hard. I had to forgive myself. And it wasn't easy, man. I had to start being nicer to people. I had to start being a dad. I had to start like being somebody that people liked. I had to become a better person to like myself and to forgive myself. And when I started making those amends, not just say, "Hey, I'm sorry," but it's, "Hey, what could I do for you? How could I help you? What do I need to make this right?"
Mm. Who were the three hardest people that you had to make amends to and why?
My mom was the number one because I couldn't stand her. And like I knew it wasn't gonna go over well. And my dad was the second one because I don't know. I somehow I felt like I didn't need to make an amends to him, but I fucked up his son. Like I made his son a terrible man.
Mm.
And I felt like I had to apologize to him for not being a good son. And I think those were the two hardest. And to be honest, I can't think of a third that was harder.
You mentioned you couldn't stand your mom. Why is that?
Uh, she left when I was about 3, and I rarely saw her over the next 40 years. And when I did, like I had to arrange it. I had to call her and make contact with her, and she just wasn't part of my life. And when I tried to make her a part of my life, she hung up on me, and it wasn't a good relationship.
How is it now?
She dead.
Oh, I'm sorry. What about with your dad?
He passed away also. Our relationship was always pretty good. I mean, after I got out of prison that second time and started straightening myself out, I always went over and said, spend a little time with him, and we always went out for a Christmas dinner and stuff like that. And we had like little things we did together, 4th of July fireworks and stuff. I'd
You-
call him when I thought of something to talk to him a little bit.
You're now happily married. You have
Yes.
a great relationship with your daughter. Now, clearly, things are brightening up for you. You look at your daughter now, 29 years old. You lost both of your parents. There were some struggles, good and bad, on both sides. What do you bring to the table different to your daughter, to your marriage, to yourself?
Honesty, uh, humility, just a good person. And I was not that before, I bring experience, understanding, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I don't know. That's a hard question.
You wind up. You mentioned sober comedy.
Yeah.
It never resonated on me that people go there, they drink and blah 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 blah. But from your experience, you look at it totally different. Like, how do you resonate sober comedy to your audience, and what's the catch behind that phrase?
Uh, there's certain sober comedy shows. I mean, I do shows in clubs with alcohol, and I encourage people, go buy the drinks or whatever, do your thing, because it doesn't bother me. But there's certain people that have sober comics, and they do sober comedy shows with sober comics, and most of the crowd is sober as well. And I'm doing an AA convention next month in front of probably 1,500 people, and I that's sober comedy. When I talk about my experiences and make light of them,
Mhm.
that's what I do on stage.
How many people have you encountered that kind of walk down that same path that you've gone down since you've been a comedian and have come up to you and say, "Hey, I can relate to everything you're saying."
Quite a few, including a couple of different comedians.
Really?
And yeah, yeah, because there's some comedians up there just telling jokes and after the show, they'll be like, oh my God, I went through the same thing. I'm doing this, I'm still doing this. And, it's nothing terrible. I mean, it's not like heroin, but, someone will say I'm drinking too much or I'm doing this, and I have experience to show them how not to do it.
What's your biggest regret out of all of this?
Not getting sober sooner, probably. Not getting into comedy sooner.
Hmm.
I found my calling and I love it.
What is it that you like about being a comedian now? That's interesting. This you I can listen to your voice. I can listen to your story to see that this is a calling that was long overdue. But what is it now that you've taken the bulls by the horn that you really like about being a professional comedian?
It's not work to me. It's not work. It's easy. It's easy. I worked in a grocery store for years and I liked it, but it was hard work. I was a helicopter pilot for a short time. And after a while, that didn't feel good because I had back surgery and stuff like that. And it's hard to fly. And this is just something where I feel accepted. That's the main thing. I feel accepted and I love me. I've always tried to make people laugh. When I'm at work, I try to make people smile. So to be on stage and do it in front of a lot of people, it's freaking great.
Now, before we wrap up, you have your pilot license. You like
Yes, sir.
you like football.
Love football, especially the Raiders.
Okay, we won't talk about that. That's my buddy Tommy's favorite. That's definitely not my team, but my hats off to you on that one. How do you
I
bring
got you.
how do you bring all that into the stage? Even being a pilot, how did that feeling come when you get your pilot license?
Pilot hasn't been on stage yet.
Really?
I'm gonna make that happen at some point. I'm gonna make that happen at some point. I've broken a lot of bones. I got to make that happen at some point.
Okay.
But it seems to me like when I sit down to write, I'm not thinking I got to write this, I got to write this. For some reason, I'm going in chronological order.
Right.
I was raised in a garage by my dad and blah, blah, blah. And I start from there, and it just goes from there.
My last question to you is this. Your daughter's 29 years old. What kind of information have you sat down and shared with her that has
I'm sorry, what
really,
kind of what?
what kind of parts of your life have you shared with your daughter that has really resonated into her and brought you guys closer?
Every single thing. She's actually come to an AA meeting. In AA, they celebrate birthdays and they give you a cake for certain years of sobriety. I think on my 15th AA birthday, she came and gave me a cake and she hears a little bit about your story and she's heard my story and she knows she's part of it. And when I say that little girl is the reason I'm sober today, she knows that. That little girl's the reason I quit smoking. When I got out, I still had a problem with cigarettes.
Mm,
And I used to think I was lying to her, because I would go outside and she's like, "What were you doing out there?" And she would smell the cigarettes on my breath, and she was trying to get me to quit for the longest time. And I just at one point I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't lie to her, and I had to stop.
mm.
And I got in March, I'll have 18 years off of cigarettes.
Congratulations. You've done such remarkable
Thank you.
things with 18 years on both sides of the spectrum. What can the viewers, what do you want the viewers to get from your story today?
Oh man, I've been through a lot from addiction to homelessness to prison a couple times, and I'm able to help people from all my pitfalls to help them avoid those pitfalls. And if you guys want to laugh, come see me, man. Come see a good show. Randy Cusick comedy. I'm on all social media platforms. I got a Randy Cusick comedy website. And there's little jokes on there. I put out little snippets here and there. You guys could laugh. You can come see me live.
Mm.
I really thank you for allowing me to be on this podcast.
I appreciate you too, Randy. Guys, make sure you reach out to Randy. Support, like I tell people at the end of every show, all it takes is one click to support somebody, to follow them, and to make a difference. And Randy can definitely make a difference in your life. Randy, my hat's off to you. Keep the journey going. Hope to see you coming to Indianapolis to be a part of the Andre the Beast Crayton show live in studio, live concerts. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton show.